Thank you, Presiding Officer. One of Scotland's most successful businessmen, Sir Tom Hunter, responded to Labour's tax rises last week by saying, "There's no economy in the world that has ever taxed its way to economic growth." So does John Swinney know of any examples?
First Minister.
What I know is that we have to be prepared to invest in economic growth, and I've set out my firm view that investing in economic growth means investing in the infrastructure and the capacity of our country, and investing in the public services upon which a great deal of economic foundations are founded. I also understand the importance of creating and encouraging and stimulating private economic activity in our economy, which is why one of the 4 priorities of my government is the supporting and nurturing of economic growth.
Russell Findlay.
Thank you. John Swinney surely knows that high tax kills growth and costs jobs. But in his topsy-turvy world, hitting hard-working Scots with high taxes will somehow boost our struggling economy. Even his own MSPs are worried. Today, an SNP-led Finance Committee report says they are deeply concerned about the Scottish Government's approach. In their report, Professor David Heald of Glasgow University called elements of Scotland's income tax rates as ludicrous. Also quoted are Aberdeen and Grampian Chamber of Commerce. The tax burden on businesses is extremely high. This penalises success and reduces profitability. So does John Swinney accept that their concerns are valid?
First Minister.
I think anyone that looks at my track record knows that I engage closely with the business community on all of these questions, and I understand also there's a vibrant debate about economic choices to be made. And I suspect Russell Findlay, from his questioning, is on one side of that argument and I'm on the other, because I believe in investment to stimulate growth, because we've had an example over the last 14 years of what the constraining of investment does. It reduces life chances, it reduces opportunity, it reduces growth. It's been an unmitigated disaster for the country, and that's the record of the Conservative Party.
Russell Findlay.
John Swinney talks about investment stimulating growth, but the point is there has been no return on this so-called investment by this government. The independent Fraser Vallender Institute found that only 9% of firms in Scotland say that the SNP government understands the business environment. Yeah. And over the last 3 years, SNP ministers received over £600 million from the UK government to provide rates relief for retail, hospitality and leisure sector. But struggling Scottish businesses have barely received 1/10 of this figure. Michael Bergson of Bucks Bar Group told us that the SNP's failure to pass on rates relief was a disgrace. And Stephen Montgomery of the Scottish Hospitality Group says that, at the very minimum, tax relief should be passed on in full and with no cap. Scottish businesses urgently need more help. So will John Swinney do the right thing?
First Minister.
President, so there's a couple of points I'd make at the outset of responding to Mr Findlay's latest question to me. The first is that he says there's no evidence of growth. So Scotland's GDP per capita has grown faster than the United Kingdom's since 2007. Accounting for population growth since 2007, GDP per person has grown by 10.5% in Scotland, compared to 6.3% at a UK level. Now that, just to remind Parliament, so that Parliament has got complete information, 2007 was the moment that this government was elected. So in the lifespan of this government, we've delivered more growth per head than in the rest of the United Kingdom. The second point, because we're on helpful clarifications here, Presiding Officer, if you may forgive me, most of the taxation that is imposed upon business is not determined by this Parliament. Most of it is determined by the United Kingdom Parliament. And on business rates, we have, of course, the most comprehensive small business scheme of business relief, which for the hospitality sector means, in our estimations, about 50% of the hospitality sector pays absolutely no business rates whatsoever in Scotland. That's where we take our action to support the sector in Scotland.
Russell Findlay.
I apologise for standing up too soon. I actually thought he'd finished, but he was still going. So when faced with the reality of what businesses are saying, John Swinney reaches for his big book of selective statistics, and everyone is pleading for the SNP to change direction. Business owners, hospitality groups, chambers of commerce, academics, the Scottish Parliament Finance Committee, even SNP backbenchers. Scotland's tax system needs to change. Higher taxes are stopping businesses from growing, preventing them from creating jobs, which would generate more money for public services. Scotland's businesses need more than rates relief. They need a game-changing tax cut. So in this year's budget, will John Swinney start to repair some of the damage inflicted by the SNP?
First Minister.
I've already put on the record the fact that this government has delivered more growth per head in Scotland than the United Kingdom has done. And then also in relation to the tax changes that this government has presided over, people like Mr Findlay told us that there would be an exodus of people from Scotland because of the tax situation. Of course, what we've seen is a net in-migration to Scotland over the period of those tax changes being in place. Now, of course, there is a budget to be gone through, and the budget cannot pass this Parliament without agreement of other members beyond the government party. We don't command a majority in Parliament. So there are discussions underway, led by the Finance Secretary, which are to construct agreement in the Parliament about what the budget looks like. But the implications of Mr Findlay's point to me is that if we are to cut taxes, we will have to cut public expenditure as well. Now, if people are going to come forward with substantive propositions in the dialogue with the Finance Secretary, at least have the democratic responsibility to set out where the tax cuts are going to come, but where the spending cuts are going to come as well. Because if we dabble with the financial madness of the Conservative Party as we got under Liz Truss, we all know where that ends up.